52. One moment, Gryph was in a forest walking next to Ovrim, and the next, he stood on a massive balcony overlooking a wondrous blue ocean. Gryph spun in a panic, moving to draw his spear, but he had no access to his inventory. In fact, he was no longer dressed in his armor, but wore a flowing robe of white and gold. The patio was massive. Columns held a half-moon roof above the back part of the massive outdoor space. Arrayed in a matching half-moon pattern were 13 stone chairs. The space was familiar, and Gryph remembered the chamber of the Pantheon from his entry to the realms. It wasn't identical, but the similarity was too close to ignore. "Welcome," a voice that was both sure and serpentine said. Gryph spun to see a tall man clad in a hooded robe that shrouded his features. On instinct, Gryph prepared flying stalactite, but the magic sputtered like an engine stalling. "My apologies, Your Eminence, but magic does not work here," the hooded man said with a slight bow of apology. "And as you have already discovered, weapons are also prohibited." "Where am I?" Gryph asked, his fists clenching and his body relaxing into a defensive pose. He may have no magic and no weapons, but he was hardly unarmed. "This is the Agora, Your Eminence, the meeting place of the gods." The hooded man walked past him. Gryph asked, reaching a hand to grab the tall hooded figure. His hand pushed through the man as if he were a ghost or a hologram. The hooded man looked at Gryph. "No harm may be dealt or received while in the Agora." "Why am I here?" Gryph asked. "Because you are a god, and a quorum has been called." Gryph's eyes went to the 13 stone chairs. The central throne was larger than the 12 that ringed it, 6 to a side. "Called by whom?" "By me," came a powerful and familiar voice. "I felt it was time that we met face to face, so you could meet your brothers and sisters." Gryph turned, not at all surprised to see the high god Aileron standing behind him. He wore the same simple robes as Gryph, but he was no less imposing than he had been in his golden armor. He stood, arms clasped behind his back, with a beatific smile that would have been at home on the Pope's face. Gryph attempted to use Analyze on the high god, but got nothing but his grandiose titles. The High God Aileron, Arche of the Pantheon, Prime of the Realms, Father to all. "The others will join us shortly, but I felt it proper that you and I had a chat." The way he said chat suggested that casual conversations were beneath him. Aileron turned to look down upon the wondrous city. Gryph recognized Aileron's attempt to put him at ease by exposing his back. "He knows that I cannot hurt him," Gryph thought. Gryph walked up next to the man and took in the city below. It was a stunning view. If the most wondrous of magical cities existed on Italy's Amalfi Coast, it would still pale compared to the wonder of this place. "The shining city," Aileron said. "My home." It is amazing, Gryph said. Thank you. I have worked very hard over many long years to build it and make it my home. He turned his gaze to Gryph, and I am very protective of what is mine. As you should be. Aileron smiled and gave a small bow. But how rude of me. I have not introduced myself. I am the High God Aileron, Arche of the Pantheon, the ruler of this realm. But I suspect you already knew that. Gryph nodded. And you are? Aileron asked. Gryph stared at Aileron, mulling over the dangers of letting him know his name. I am Gryph. Just Gryph. I have yet to acquire any fancy titles, Gryph said with definite snark. Well, you have just arrived, Aileron said, a verbal jab back at Gryph. Still getting my feet wet, as they say, and performing quite admirably. Your Godhead has already evolved. Gryph tensed. How could he know that? Well, my father instilled a strong work ethic in me, as all fathers should. If it is acceptable, I will dispense with the small talk. Gryph nodded. You are an enigma, Gryph. You are not supposed to be here, and you are not supposed to possess what you possess. I do not know who you are or where you come from, but I dislike unknowns. On that, we can agree, Gryph said. Excellent. You are a civilized man. I believe that we can come to an accord. What is it that you want? Straight and direct. I appreciate that. Aileron turned away and walked, hands clasped behind his back. Gryph knew it was another ploy, designed to make Gryph feel comfortable. It was failing. Gryph tensed. I ask that you join me. I ask that you join the Pantheon. I ask for your fealty, Aileron said, turning his potent gaze on Gryph. In exchange, I will teach you, help you achieve your ultimate potential. He truly doesn't know who I am, Gryph realized. If he did, then he'd use Bryn to threaten me, which means my presence is no threat to Bryn. Yet. Waves of relief surged through Gryph. To hide this joy, Gryph smiled a wry smile. I've always been more of a solo kind of guy. Aileron's expression soured as a deep anger surged from the depths of his being. Gryph got the smallest of peeks at the High God's true nature before it was buried. That presents a problem. I brought the Pantheon here to restore justice and order to a world long infected by corruption and evil. I have built a better realm for all who reside here, and I will let no power threaten my world. Gryph's mind flashed back to the ancient scene he'd experienced in the Barrow. I know you, Morrigan, Gryph thought. I know what you truly are. I'm just a man trying to get by in a strange world, Gryph said. I have no plans to throw a wrench into your gears. Alaron smiled. Ah, so you are a player then. I suspected as much. Shit, Gryph thought. I need to watch what I say. Damn colloquialisms. What else have I given away? Tell me, how do you still have access? Or are you trapped? Do you have loved ones who miss you? I could send you back. Like I said, I've always been a solo kind of guy. Too easy, I suppose, Alaron said with a smile. Well, Gryph, I suppose if you behave, I can let you stay. He gazed into Gryph's eyes. It is time to meet your brethren. 12 other figures materialized on the stone chairs arrayed in front of Gryph. As they coalesced, Alaron took his seat on the central throne. Welcome, gods of the Pantheon, the hooded man intoned. Gryph took an involuntary step back as he saw the deities before him. He saw Alaron's smile. Gryph's eyes scanned the arrayed gods. Several were female. He had already met Helleracon and Zakoth, but neither showed any sign that they recognized him. Just recordings after all, Gryph thought in relief. His eyes scanned the other goddesses, and his eyes settled on one, a few spots to the left of Alaron. She was tall and regal, with a warm face that did not look like Bryn, but it felt like her. Gryph used Analyze on her. Ferancia, the messenger goddess, goddess of the travelers and guests. Ferancia noticed his attention and leaned forward in her chair and grinned at Gryph. The small uptick of the mouth that Gryph had seen 1,000 times on his sister when they were kids. This is Bryn. Gryph almost stepped forward, almost outed Bryn, but then his instincts took control. An amateur move if there had ever been one. He buried his fears and turned back to Alaron. I have offered him a place here, but he is reluctant. Alaron leaned forward ever so slightly. I wanted him to meet you, so that he understood exactly how things work here. The threat was obvious. If Gryph stepped out of line, Alaron would bring the full power of the Pantheon down upon him. Gryph wouldn't be fighting one god, but 13, including, it seemed, his own sister. What say you, Gryph? I ask you one last time. Will you join us? Alaron boomed. All eyes were on Gryph, and he flashed back to his childhood. The time as a teen when he'd stolen a car and gone on a joyride. The cops had not scared him. They were nothing compared to the Colonel. As Alaron's gaze drilled into him, Gryph realized that the Colonel was nothing compared to this god. Fear ate at him, but he pushed it down and stared back at Alaron. Alaron's gaze and body knew Gryph's answer before the words came from his mouth. Had the Agora allowed for it, Gryph knew he'd be dead this very moment. I appreciate the High God's most gracious offer, but I believe I will make my own way in this realm." To his credit, Alaron held in his rage. With no further ceremony, Alaron stood. "Then this quorum is at an end." Alaron flicked his hand in a petulant and dismissive manner, and suddenly Gryph was back in the glade with his friends. He stumbled, and Overham caught him. "You okay?" Wick asked, seeing the fear in Gryph's eyes. "I'm in a world of shit," Gryph said. This has been Barrow King, The Realms, Book 1, an epic lit RPG adventure. Written by C.M. Carney. Narrated by Armen Taylor. Copyright 2018 by C.M. Carney. Production copyright 2018 by C.M. Carney. Thank you for listening.